Welcome to The Sweet Life. I am your host, Christy Anderson. The Sweet Life is all about having conversations with great leaders in our community, real conversations about not only how they've been successful professionally, but also in all parts of their life. And I am so excited today to be joined by my friend, Jeremy Bowman with Rise. Thank you so much for being here.
My honor. Thanks for being here. Great to see you. Great to be with you.
Great to see you. It's been a minute, and I know you've been very, very busy. I see posts on social media about all of the things that you're doing and all of the people that you're helping. But for those people who maybe are living under a rock in Omaha and haven't heard about Rise, tell us a little bit about the organization, the history, your primary mission, why you exist.
Yeah, we exist to break generational cycles of incarceration. We're in our 9th year, so we're still a newer nonprofit. But today we have 34 staff. We work with system-impacted people in prison facilities across the state. We work with people who have been system-impacted in our community. So our core program is in 5 prisons where we do 6 months of pre-release programming, really preparing people kind of in a classroom setting to come home and have a reentry plan and think about careers. And there's an entrepreneurship component for people who are interested in small business, character development work. And so just really providing some habilitative tools that don't exist otherwise, and then kind of walking out that reentry with people both before they get out and then as they hit the door and they come back to the community. We do case management and really make sure people have access to housing, employment, youth and family programming that we offer, a 12-week business academy where we help people stand up a small business, and we have a microloan fund that helps provide some small business loans for those folks. So really kind of holistically looking at after you've, served your time and maybe you've been down for quite some time, what do you need to do to prepare to come home, and how can we as a community really show up with support and make sure that you're successful by helping you get on a good track of safe housing, a good track of competitive wage employment, and just being and feeling belonging in the community with Rise, but also with employers and neighbors, and really trying to also prepare the community for what it means when people come home, that if we welcome people home, their success is our success.
Right. And you have now been operating for 9 years, did you tell me?
Yeah.
So how many hundreds of individuals have you helped? And when you think about the individual, it's the individual that is reentering society, but it's also their families. It's also their kiddos. It's also their spouses. It's also, their grandmothers. And, there's so many people that are impacted by this, right?
Yeah, we've had about 1,000 people now graduate that 6-month pre-release program. And then we serve on average about 700 individuals and families a year. We have youth and family programming. That's 9 months of programming we do each year with people who have loved ones who might still be incarcerated or they're transitioning home. And we bring healing and restoration to that family, make sure that we're bridging that healing sometimes when you need somebody just to be there with them, and to do that in community with other families who are navigating carceral systems. That's through our business academy or our employment training and placement. So, we have about 2,500 people that come out of our prisons every year in Nebraska, and with having had 1,000 people now gone through our program and about 400 who are back in the community from our pre-release program, that footprint's starting to increase, and they need, all different types of supports along the way. And so we try to really be that and provide those programs and services that are timely and critical and necessary when they need them.
Right. And you had mentioned it might be hard for some who maybe they've never interacted with a person who's been in the system or incarcerated, and they might have certain stereotypes about what that looks like or who those people are. But why should we all as community members care about this issue?
Yeah, for a number of reasons. If you want to start off economically, it's really expensive to incarcerate people. Mm-hmm. So as taxpayers, we pay $55,000 a year to incarcerate one adult for 1 year. We have an overcrowded prison system, and so if you look at the last 10 years of education funding in our state. Corrections is outpacing that significantly. So just the economics of it are an issue. Right. For me, it's a racial justice issue. It's a social justice issue. If we support people when they come home, in Nebraska, we have really low unemployment, which can be a real gift. But with 2,500 people getting out every year, we have opportunities to help our workforce with system-impacted folks, getting them trained, getting them ready for high-skill, high-wage, high-need jobs. And that helps our local business community. Public safety improves when people are working, when people are able to be home and making a competitive wage. They're building generational wealth for their families. And business creation, where we've started 90 companies in the last 4 years of system-impacted people. There's about 54 of those that are hiring people, still very active. People have left either unemployment or underemployment to live their dream of small business creation. So those things help our economy. Mm-hmm. Those things improve our public safety. They help us as taxpayers with the cost of incarceration. And I just truly believe with 95% of the people in our state that are incarcerated, they're coming home. And it's our responsibility as a community to welcome people home. They paid their debt. Who among us hasn't made mistakes in our life? And we're better as a community when people are able to reenter well, and we can help them feel the belonging because there's other barriers they face. They're not able to access public housing or SNAP benefits in some cases. There's 800 industries that categorically won't hire people with felony backgrounds. So there's enough laws and barriers where if we can remove some of those barriers through legislative efforts that we make, or just through creating a more empathetic and opportunity-minded community, we all win, and it's better for everybody.
Yeah. You know, and one statistic I couldn't believe, I think most people wouldn't think of prison overcrowding as necessarily an issue in a state like Nebraska.
Sure.
You might think of it as an urban issue, or larger cities would have this issue, but we have a real problem with overcrowding in our state. Is that correct?
We do. We're the most overcrowded state in the country currently. We are building a new prison outside of Lincoln that'll be 1,500 beds. And this is where we work on sentencing reform and different things in terms of lowering recidivism rates and making sure people are successful, because we're bursting at the seams in our system. And, building new prisons is expensive. You have to staff them. And there's conservative states that are closing prisons and thinking more about diversion, different types of diversion programming, drug courts, or sentencing reform that gives judges more power over what they can and cannot do with sentencing. So we need to holistically look at all these things to kind of think about an overcrowded prison system as a public health issue. Mm-hmm. It's unsafe for the people who live there. It's unsafe for the people who work there. And you can't build your way out of these types of issues with, creating more prisons. We need to think about prevention. We need to think about all these other alternative ways to help people be successful that have caused harm.
Right. And one thing I love about your program, and I think back when I first learned about it, probably at the beginning of when you started, because I think I came in and maybe did a judge some of your Shark Tank competitions. Yes. And that's the one thing that is really cool about what you do is you look at your students, if you will, and mm-hmm. you see these entrepreneurial skills in them. And you mentioned that, when you get out of the system, it's very difficult sometimes to find a job because someone won't hire someone with a felony conviction and that kind of thing. But it doesn't mean that they don't have skills. And so you've empowered them to maybe start their own business, which I would think would be a real deterrent from them wanting to go back in as well, because they feel a sense of pride and ownership about what they're doing when they do get out. If they're able to start their own business, they're able to have their own thing. They're able to build generational wealth, as you put it, for their families.
Yeah. Yeah. Job creation when you're underemployed or unemployed. and based on your circumstances, you've had to provide and adapt in your home, in your community. Often at a young age, we have people who are very resilient and adaptable, who have run all kinds of businesses that are in our system. So we really want to take that skill set that we see that the marketplace needs, and people who are truly gifted entrepreneurs, and provide, funding and the language for legal entrepreneurship and opportunities and mentorship. We have lots of people in our community who mentor people in our business academy around accounting and legal and sales and marketing and all the things you need to do to run a successful business. But they have that drive, and I'm blown away by the creativity of some of these businesses, as well as just they're just not going to give up, and it's kind of baked into who they are. They're survivors. They've survived, and a lot of times traumatic childhoods. But anybody who walks out of a locked facility has some level of PTSD from that experience. So these are, even for the workforce, these are people who are incredibly resilient and can really add a lot of value to a workforce or to the, small business ecosystem.
So going back a little bit, I always love to hear from people and what they're doing now, but then try to understand, like, what made you get to this place? Because, you're an East Coast guy. You've worked in higher education and other nonprofit stuff. I think you worked at Creighton for a while, right? So what tugged at your heart to do this? Why did Jeremy say one day, I'm going to start an organization that helps those who are in the system reenter society successfully?
Yeah, I have some family members who have been incarcerated, so a little bit of that. But for me, it was more volunteering at the Douglas County Jail. I worked at Creighton. I would go for an hour a week after work, and I was mentoring men who were in the system who were pre-trial. They hadn't been sentenced with anything, and so I'd spend an hour with them a week. You do that over a number of years, and it just builds a lot of relationships and friendships, and seeing a lot of common themes of underemployment, unemployment, a real resiliency and adaptability from maybe illegal entrepreneurial endeavors that they've been involved in, but a real drive where, for whatever reason, it just wasn't connecting in with the job market. And I think seeing kind of these large prison sentences being passed down, sitting with people's families while they were getting 10, 20, 30, 40 years of prison sentences, and sitting with their kids and seeing, okay, so now 3 of these 4 kids are going to be adults by the time, dad comes home. That really struck me about how we have these generational cycles. And to a person, even in our program today, people have had their parents incarcerated, siblings. We have moms in our program out at York who have sons in other facilities where we do programming. We've had fathers and sons in the same prison do programming together. And so how do we break this generational cycle? And competitive wage employment and entrepreneurship and job creation, it's not a silver bullet, but we've seen that those opportunities to earn a fair living really do make a big difference in what happens with the next generation. 1 in 10 kids in Nebraska has a parent with a criminal record, and nationally, 70% of the kids with a parent who's been incarcerated will become justice involved. So if your mom or dad's a doctor or lawyer or whatever it is, it's maybe I can do that. For incarceration, a lot of times it's not a matter of if, but when. And so I just really felt I like practical solutions. Yeah. And I thought, if we can bring job training, if we can use that entrepreneurship mindset, the entrepreneurial mindset and the skill set, and bring training before people even hit the door, and allow them to hit the ground running when they get out, will that make a difference? And, I'll say that it does. It makes a difference to help with the preparation, with the support, both inside and out, where we can build trusting relationships with people. And so when they get out, they can speak in our lives and we can speak into theirs, because we've had all this time to get to know them and kind of know what they need. And we can be thoughtful about fit to role and fit to organization around employment, We know their families. So just having that community of mutual accountability and support for a lot of folks who haven't felt belonging, who have had a lot of childhood trauma, it really makes a world of difference, and it keeps more people in our community than in our locked facilities in our state.
You know, you've had obviously an obvious impact on those who have gone through your program, but I would imagine that you've also had an impact and maybe a light bulb moment for many of the professionals in our community that have gone into the prisons to help you with the Shark Tank or help you do some of that mentoring in accounting or others. You know, what have been the most enlightening things that you've seen in that regard?
Yeah, we've brought over 1,500 people in our state that are in our business community into the Nebraska prison system to interact with folks who are incarcerated through our program. You came in and got to judge like a pitch competition. Yep. We have those types of opportunities. We have people who come in and do mock interviewing. They help people with business plans or listening to their personal statements. But what it does mostly is it just connects us in our humanity. Mm-hmm. And just like anything else, like how I was impacted as a volunteer, it really shifts your perceptions about who's incarcerated, about the lives of people who are navigating these systems, and the lack of opportunities, just the kind of tragic situations that they grew up in and challenges they face sometimes in their own home. It creates a lot of empathy. And for me, that empathy creates a lot of connections where a lot of the people in the business community have come in and said, you know, my perception is really like either it's out of sight, out of mind. I don't know anybody who's been incarcerated, and there's these literal walls and bars that kind of, you know, keep us separate, or things I've seen on, you know, all the crime shows I watch. Mm-hmm. And these, I have to remind myself that these are just people in our community. They're just like you and I. You know, we don't condone community harm that's been caused, and the system takes care of what that punishment looks like. But ultimately, we can take some responsibility on what happens after that and how we can help people get back on track. And so we see people hiring graduates of RISE. We see people renting space or filling backpacks that we give people the day they get out, or providing cell phones or computers. And it gets a community to really put a name and face to this kind of pervasive, you know, whole kind of criminal justice system that we have. And I think by humanizing it, that gets people, you know, like me, it got me kind of, you know, off my couch to say, I need to do something about this and use the privilege I have in my life and find ways to improve this, you know, and to look at it and say, we're failing people, you know, this isn't good enough. And I wouldn't want my own family to live in some of the places where people live when they get out, or to be in those situations. And so we have to think of our brothers and sisters who are coming home in that same way. So
9 years in.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've had a lot of success stories. You've learned a lot about starting an organization like this. So in your next 5 years, I mean, what's on the horizon? What would you love to accomplish with RISE?
Yeah, we have some really bold dreams about what's coming down the pike, and all of it is how can we help solve problems for the people we serve? And I'm proud that today about 65% of our staff are system impacted, formerly incarcerated folks. They really inform our programming and what the real true needs are for people who are navigating carceral systems.
They get it.
Yeah, and they get it. And they want to get back. They want to get back to communities they've harmed, and they have that lived expertise that I personally don't have. So, you know, we've been dreaming about how we can improve housing situations for people when they come home. There are not nearly enough opportunities for safe transitional housing in Omaha. There's affordable housing challenges kind of across our city. But you put a felony background on top of that, and your options become further limited. And we've just seen the stature of some of the places where people parole to that aren't safe, and they don't have programming that's going to support people, and they end up going back or becoming unhoused and couch surfing and so we're really working with some real intention around what is our role in this? What is our role in making sure that people have enough time to transition well, to have a safe place to sleep at night, just kind of that Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You need, food and shelter and clothing, and just a lot of the basics need to be covered. And for the people we serve, they don't have those things covered. So we're looking at housing, and we're also looking kind of in the community with us and other organizations. How do we simplify reentry for people who don't have maybe access to transportation? They're trying to navigate our public transportation system, and they have to go somewhere to see their parole officer, somewhere else for therapy, somewhere else for work, somewhere else for recovery programming, all these things that they need to be successful, and they don't often have the means of transportation to get there or the time. So it's not just a RISE initiative, but right. Collectively as a community, how can we simplify this? Mm-hmm. How can we remove barriers? How can we bring services together to help with education pathways and workforce development and healthcare and mental health, and take the guesswork out of that for folks. Right. So we got some really exciting things in the hopper that you'll be seeing in the community over the next probably 3 years, where we hope to address some of these housing issues and some of the kind of one-stop reentry needs that people need.
Okay, if people are listening to this, and want to get involved or want to learn more about RISE, how can they do that? Yeah,
our website is www.seusrise.org, seusrise.org. You can find us on social media. We have lots of great opportunities to plug people into our work. I talked about bringing people into the facilities mm-hmm. like you did many years ago, where you came into the Omaha Correctional Center. We have these coaching days or pitch competition opportunities. We have mentorship opportunities and ways the business community can get involved with our RISE Business Academy, coming alongside system impacted entrepreneurs. We get churches involved in different types of projects around these welcome home bags. And we also do online business market research. So you can, from the comforts of your own home, look at somebody's business plan and provide some feedback. Yeah. And then we bring that into the facility for people who are in our class at, Tecumseh or York or the State Penn or all the places mm-hmm. we do our program. So lots of really cool ways to kind of, get your hands dirty and interact with our work. And we, it takes a village to do reentry well. So we would love to have folks reach out and get involved.
And you said it. I mean, it does take a village. And when it's done well and people can reenter society successfully, all of us are better for that. Yeah. It's safer for all of us when that happens. And so thank you so much for the work that you're doing. You're pretty awesome.
Oh, thank you. It's great to be with you and see you again. And I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks for your support.
You bet.
Yeah.
And thank you for joining us on today's Sweet Life.